Are you pushing through doors that God has not opened yet? Hello, my B-side queens. Welcome back to the channel where we believe that the record is not over yet. Today, I want to ask you a question that I've had to ask myself more than once. Are you pushing through doors that God has not opened yet? Now, before we go any further, let me say this. I understand determination, hard work, and persistence. I have never been someone who believes in sitting around and waiting for life to magically happen. If there's work to do, I believe we should do it. Preparation to be done, we should prepare. Are there skills that we need to develop? Well, let's go and develop them. Faith has never meant laziness, but somewhere along the way, I think that many of us began to believe that every closed door simply meant push harder, knock louder, force it, make it happen. And sometimes that does work, but sometimes that door is actually protection. Have you ever looked back on your life and realized, thank God that didn't work out? I know I have. There were opportunities I prayed for that never happened. People I desperately wanted to stay who walked away anyway. Plans I carefully laid out that completely unraveled. At the time, I thought I was being rejected. Now I realize I was being redirected. There is a difference. Sometimes we confuse delay with denial. We think that because something hasn't happened yet, it never will. But timing matters. A seed planted today doesn't become an oak tree tomorrow. Pregnancy has a season, fruit has a season, healing has a season, even growth has a season. So why would purpose be any different? One of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn is this. Preparation and promotion are not always the same calendar, because God spends years preparing us for something that the world thinks should happen immediately. And during that preparation, we become frustrated because we can't see the destination, because we don't understand the delay. Maybe the delay isn't about the opportunity. Could it be it's about us? Maybe we're still becoming the person who can handle exactly what we're asking for. Imagine receiving something you prayed for before you had the wisdom to manage it. Sometimes what feels like waiting is actually training. I think about a teenager who wants the keys to the family car. They may sincerely believe that they're ready, but a parent's love sometimes says, not yet. Not because the answer is no, because the timing is wrong. And how many times have we mistaken God's wisdom for God's absence? Then there are doors we spend entirely too much energy trying to force open, and we've all done it. Trying to convince someone to love us, keeping friendships that have already expired. Fitting into rooms where we constantly have to prove our worth, chasing opportunities that leave us exhausted. Every step feels like a battle. So it might be worth asking, is this really my door? Don't misunderstand me. Every worthwhile journey requires effort. Nothing meaningful comes without discipline. But there is a difference between working hard and wrestling with something that God never, ever assigned to you. Sometimes we mistake resistance for confirmation, and we think, well, the harder this is, the more it must be God's will. Not necessarily. Sometimes difficulty builds character, and other times difficulty is just simply telling you that you're climbing through someone else's window instead of walking through your own front door. I've learned something over these years. God rarely wastes our preparation. Even when one opportunity closes, the lessons don't. Discipline doesn't, character doesn't, nothing is wasted. Maybe you're waiting for healing, for the right relationship, financial breakthrough, some clarity about what's next. Waiting can feel uncomfortable. It gets on my nerves, especially in a culture that celebrates instant everything, instant messages, instant delivery, instant answers. We have become uncomfortable with seasons, but God has always worked in seasons. Abraham, Joseph, and David waited. Even Jesus spent years preparing before beginning his public ministry. Preparation has always been a part of God's process. So perhaps the question isn't, why hasn't the door opened? Perhaps the better question is, what am I supposed to learn while I'm standing here? Because waiting doesn't have to be wasted. Waiting can become worship, wisdom. It can become growth. There is another side to this conversation. Sometimes God has already opened the door and we're just standing outside because fear has convinced us that we're not ready. That's a different kind of struggle. Sometimes we're trying to force open doors that aren't ours, and other times we're afraid to walk through the doors that are already open. Discernment is learning the difference. I think that's why prayer matters and quiet moments matter. Listening especially matters. Not every opportunity is your assignment. Every invitation doesn't deserve your yes. Every open door isn't leading you to your purpose. And not every closed door is your enemy. Some doors are locked, I believe, because they are protecting your peace, because your story isn't ready for that chapter. And some are simply waiting until you become the woman who can walk through them with some wisdom instead of desperation. So today I'm going to leave you with one simple question. What door are you exhausting yourself trying to force open? And what would happen if instead of pushing harder, you trusted God a little deeper? Perhaps your energy isn't supposed to be spent forcing the door. Perhaps it's supposed to be spent preparing yourself. Because when the right door opens, you won't have to become someone you're not just to walk through it. You'll simply walk in as the woman God has been preparing all along. So thank you guys for spending these moments with me today. And if this conversation encouraged you, share it with another B-side queen. She may be growing weary in the waiting. And if you're new here, I would love for you to subscribe and join our community, because here we believe delays are not always denials. We believe preparation has a purpose. And above all, we really believe that the record is not over yet.